to the Arizona Cowboy Poets Gathering podcast. This is our 8th in a series, and we hope you enjoy them and subscribe to receive them when produced. We do about one a month, try to. I am Jim Buchanan, your host, and the Arizona Cowboy Poets Gathering is in the planning stages for August 6th, 7th, and 8th, 2026. Thank you to Fane's Signature Group, Talking Glass Media, Guy Rodgensen, Director, Cast 11, Tony Tedford, our multimedia producer, and all their staff. They've been extremely nice to work with, professional in every way, and we highly recommend them. Today we have one of my and our favorite poets joins us from Santan Valley, Arizona. Mike drove up to be with us today, and I appreciate that very much. Mike Dunn, welcome.
Jim, glad to be here.
Super. Mike's a cowboy poet. He has won the Gail I. Gardner Award in 2009, and most recently, he was one of 5 male poets who was honored with being in the top 5 of the International Western Music Association convention in Albuquerque, New Mexico, just a couple of weeks ago. So that's quite an honor, Mike.
It certainly was. It was an honor to be numbered with those 4 other cowboy poets.
Well, you were with the best of the best.
Amen.
and I'm glad to say that all 5 of those have been at the Arizona Cowboy Poets Gathering. And I guess I haven't told Mike yet, but he's been invited back this coming year in 2026 to be with us again. So we're looking forward to that.
Thank you.
You've done more poems than I can count, but today I think I'd like to kind of really emphasize some of your poems, and you've done some that stick in my mind and some I'm not as familiar with, but unfortunately my role at the gathering often keeps me busy with things and not able to enjoy the poetry and music as much as I'd like. But Mike, you did a poem about Mom's kitchen table, and it reminded me of my childhood. I wasn't a cowboy and wasn't raised on a ranch per se, but I was raised 11 miles north of Prescott, and we didn't have a telephone at the time. And the road was dirt, and it took a while to get to town. And as your poem reflects, pretty much everything in a cowboy's life is done at Mom's kitchen table. Would you do that poem for us?
I'd be honored to do that for you, Jim, and you're absolutely right. One thing about that poem, it doesn't matter where you grew up, whether it was a ranch or a high-rise in some big city. There was a Mom's, and there was Mom's kitchen table. And it's been my experience that the mom took charge there, and that was a place of education. That was a place of upbringing and sharing of values. And that's what I'd like to have reflected in this poem when I wrote it.
Good. Do that for us, please.
I'd be honored to. I'd like to be at Mom's kitchen table again, in the surroundings as when I was a kid. Life was easy and worries were few, and Mom found good in all we did. We'd gather around the table each morning and again at the end of the day. Mom would make sure we were washed and clean before bowing our heads to pray. Now the table was long and a bit narrow, but it fit all us kids just fine, along with Dad, Mom, and a hired hand, and a boarder from time to time. Made from planks of 4-inch pine, scraps from when the barn was built, a leg on each corner, another in the middle, sturdy, strong, and stout. Benches split from cottonwood, running along each side, once rough, now worn smooth, but polished over time. At the head of the table, Dad's chair was sat, Mom's at the other end. But when Dad missed a meal, she'd fix him a plate and take the bench seat next to him. A center for family gatherings, the good book might be read at night, where life's discussions were commonplace by the glow of a coal oil light, figuring out which fields to plant, which calves to send to sale, horses to work, cows to cull, which fields to cut and bale. At the tables where quilts were sewn, peas were peeled, peaches canned, where wild berries and cactus apples were preserved, jellied, and jammed. It's where Uncle Ben in agony was laid when fighting rustlers he got shot, where the doctor labored into the night to dig that bullet out. A workbench for mending saddles or study when day was done. There's a hole where Dad shot it, he claimed while loading his gun. It's where the preacher sat to visit when sister was to be wed. It's where the family was called to gather to get the news Grandpa was dead. Family discussions, plans laid out where meat was prepared for the smoker. Laundry was folded, gifts were wrapped, and occasionally a game of matchstick poker. Supported Dad's arms holding his head when spring crops didn't come through. Late frost, hot winds, or a plight of bugs, there was little anyone could do. Where a proud man confessed the shortcomings of his life to the one woman with the willing ear, his darling, my mother, his wife. Where Sunday meals of wild turkey or beef were served as a festive feast, and all music around that table was made to the tapping of tired feet. Now there's quiet remembrances and stories told with laughter and tears. And those gatherings at the table's been part of it all, spanning decades of years. At Mom's kitchen table, great lessons were learned. More than at school, work, or church. Lessons of life, respect, and caring. The lessons of a family's worth.
Creates a lot of emotion, Mike.
Yep. I see it in my mind as I share it. And I remember those times.
Yeah.
On the ranch, we didn't have electricity like you. Well, you didn't have a TV and phone and stuff till later, but we didn't even have electricity on the ranch still, on the upper ranch until the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
And we had to learn to listen and take criticism and share thoughts and learn. And who do we do that from? Mom and Dad.
Yep.
An uncle from time to time, a grandpa.
Yeah.
And I'm thrilled I had the opportunity to do that. I didn't think that at the time, but I sure appreciate it now.
Yeah. We thought we were being beat up on.
That's right. We thought we was being
to
abused.
live that life. And it was the best thing that ever happened to us.
Amen.
And I share that feeling with you. You mentioned in that poem, and we were visiting before we started this little session today, about a bullet hole in a table, and that reminds me of, you were telling me a story about Tom Mix, who was pretty famous up here in the Prescott area back in the day. There was a little story about a young fellow that drove Tom Mix's Cord.
Yeah, that was my Uncle Jack. And since this is an Arizona deal, there's probably a lot of folks out there that knew my Uncle Jack. He passed away a couple of years ago. He was in his early 90s, but he was head cattle inspector here in Arizona for a lot of years. And he was head cattle inspector when a lot of changes were coming. And it was through him that he inspired a lot of the changes that made that industry a whole lot more efficient and doing a better job.
I met your Uncle Jack. I think you remember that when you invited us down to the ranch.
Yeah.
Their old home ranch was there just north of Kartchner Caverns down in the Sierra Vista, Benson area of Arizona.
Absolutely. Well, to answer your question, the old Jack was, I don't think he was a teen. I think he was around 11, if I remember the story right. And Tom Mix was in town in Benson, hooping it up with some of his cowboy buddies. And Granddad was a deputy sheriff, and Benson was his area. And if you knew Granddad, he was known for his fairness and his kindness, and yet he could get the job done, and he did what he needed to do. But anyway, he was called to the bar, and Tom Mix was there with a bunch of his buddies, and they agreed that they were going to tone it down a little bit, and they wouldn't go anyplace. Well, Grandpa agreed to let him go ahead and carry on a little bit, and the bartender was all good with it. But he says, you got to give me the keys to your car. And it was that cord, his cord, that just a few weeks later he was killed in.
Yeah.
But Granddad didn't have any way to move it. And so he got Jack, and Jack was, like I say, about 11 years old. And he put Jack in that cord, and Jack followed Grandpa to the ranch, driving Tom Mix's cord. And it was there for a couple, 3 days until he had his fun, and he got sober, and he contacted Grandpa, and Grandpa went and got him and took him to his car. But that's a neat story. That's how things got done way back when.
Been better to have a kid driving a car than a drunk cowboy.
Yeah, and to hear Jack tell it, he said, I'd never driven one of them cars before. And of course, he had driven the pickup on the ranch. That was, at that age, that was commonplace.
Yep.
But he was a little tickled, and he smiled and chuckled when he was telling me the story. So.
Those were the good old days. I have fond memories of driving. My mother would have me drive, and we'd go to town, and while we were on the dirt part of Williamson Valley Road, I was 8 years old, driving to town or driving home, whichever way we were going.
But it was an insurance policy. You had to have your kids learn things like that, because if something happened, you might be called on to do it to save a life.
Yeah.
And that was the ranch life. That was commonplace.
Yep. The other thing you mentioned in your poem about Mom's kitchen table is the kids, and some of the kids were girls, and I know you've got a poem about girls and cowboys, and we both respect girls as being some of the best cowboys around.
Absolutely. Some of the best cowboys I know are girls.
Share that poem with us, if you would, including your own daughters.
That's right. I got a daughter both daughters. They're both cowgirls. Stacy just participated in the Grand Canyon finals in barrel racing, so she's still hard out at. Her and her husband do a lot of team roping. They raised their own horses. They took over the horse operation after we bowed out, and they've got some good animals, and they were just born right there and sired and everything right there on our place, and good animals.
Super.
But let me share this one with you, and I hope you enjoy it. She was the darling of her daddy's eye, her mom's sweet bundle of joy. Had to hit the ground a running. She was supposed to be a boy. Common joke amongst the folks, expressed county-wide. Her cowboy dad could not sire a filly, no matter how he tried. The announcement came, stunned them all, gave them all a whirl. Mom's in prayer giving thanks. It's a little baby girl with 7 brothers lined up proud. I got an aching hunch. She'll be pampered, protected, and certainly teased. The only girl of the bunch. Her brothers will call her sister, a name she doesn't mind. All way back when there was argument, but now she likes it fine. Dollies were constant pals. She'd show 'em off with pride. Her favorite was a hand-sewn with a hand-sewn horse to ride. Got good at helping out her mom. With chores she did just fine. When one day she wanted to help her dad, it was just a matter of time. Soon blossomed as a cowhand. Even the brothers would make that claim. Savvy cow sense, tough as nails, could put the boys to shame. Unlike the boys helping mom, the little gal took to every task. In the house or on the ranch, whatever they would ask. Of course, the boys did household chores. They'd kind of help out where they could. Hanging out laundry they could do, or dishes, or chopping wood. Got good at making soap with the fire ash and boiling. But when it come to finer things, the brothers weren't worth having. None of them ever took to sewing or jam making to win a prize. Not the way she took to cowboying. Is anyone surprised? She helped her daddy with the chores. Helped her mama too. Where she is needed, that's what she done. That was more than her brothers could do. Now, don't get me wrong. Those boys were good. At buckarooing, they passed the test. But all around help to mom and dad, the little lady was the best. And her smile welcomed as autumn's breeze, sweet as rain in summer. Her soft-spoken, caring way of doing things couldn't get much better. Oh, there are some things that suffered living way out of town. But she's as fun as an ice cream social when most anyone come around. The first young man come courting, kind of clumsy in his way. Rode over from a neighboring ranch, didn't have much to say. Her brothers took to running him off. Of course, she liked him fine, but she was only 8 years old. The cowboy was pushing 9. By the time she reached 11, she had her life planned out. Horses were her only love, the good ones, strong and stout. Of course, that could change in an instant. That neighbor kid's never really far. They act as though they're best buddies, and I suspect that's what they are. Still horse crazy, just the same. There'll likely come a time she'll look at him in a different way, and that too will be just fine. For dinner, she invites him. He always likes to stay, and with the family, he still visits in a shy and awkward way. The little gal, she's a cowgirl. Always a lady, you can tell. There's those that say that girl's a cowboy. The label she wears quite well. She's proud to be a cowgirl that can gather rope and ride. Honored to be called cowboy. Both titles she holds with pride. She's the darling of her daddy's eye, her mom's sweet bundle of joy. May have hit the ground a running, but she's certainly not a boy.
That's a good poem, Mike. Yeah, that's nice. And I think there's an awful lot of that relates to your family.
Well, there's a lot of effort, that's for sure.
Yeah, you've got some nice kids.
I am blessed with some good kids.
Yep.
Everyone.
I forget what you told me about it. Whether it actually was a true story or one of those events that got embellished a little bit, but
we never do that.
You don't?
Oh, well, maybe a little.
Well, I thought you did. There's a poem you call The Card.
Okay.
And it's a pretty humorous story. I laugh every time I hear it, and I always want to hear it again.
Well, can I tell you a little story behind that one?
Yes, sir.
Jack told it to me, my Uncle Jack. And he was always telling me some stories, and you're never quite sure. But I think this one is based on a true story. Now, whether it's got a lot of embellishment or not, I won't argue that. But I was talking to him, and I got by the ranch quite often. And he told me this story that the poem's based on. And Baxter Black just lived down the hill from him, and he was, and Bax were pretty good buddies. And when he got through telling me, the first thing I says, now, have you told Bax this story yet? And he says, well, no, I haven't seen him. And I said, well, don't you tell him that story. And he kind of looked at me funny. I says, he'll write a poem quicker and better than I can, so don't you do that. And he says, okay. And he didn't.
Well, I don't know how it'd be better than the poem you wrote.
Well, Bax was an excellent, there's none better than him. And he was a good man too.
Yes, he was.
So anyway, 6 months later or so, I take a while writing him. I was back and I asked him first off, did you tell Bax that story? And he said, no. So with that, I handed him a copy of the poem and we went over it. But yeah, I'd like to share that with you. And Jack is the one that told me a lot of this is true. I mean, with his wife coming out, and it's been embellished a little bit, but you see what was going on. This story is told on my Uncle Jack and a young fella now wait, I'm going to say BLM. Are your folks out there know what the BLM is? Should we educate them?
Oh, yeah, I think most do.
Okay, well, probably if they're listening to this, they do. But it's the Bureau of Land Management.
Yes, sir.
And the government's coming to help you. Sometimes they do. This story is told on my Uncle Jack and a young fella from the BLM. A kid set out to make his mark. He'd come to check on him. A city kid with a half-cocked grin, friendly enough at first. The wife provided refreshment, something to quench his thirst. They visited on local news, cattle prices and the drought. All the time the kid's taking notes. Jack's wondering what it's all about. Finally, the kid come out and said he'd come to look around. The condition of the land and its use from the treetops to the ground. Jack told him, go right ahead. But then he pointed toward a gate with a warning, don't go in there. That would be a big mistake. The kid spun on his heels, lost his grin, returned to where Jack stood, took out a card and held it high, said, I don't believe you understood. This here's a bona fide government issued card. None can take its place for allowing me to go where I want, as he waved it in Jack's face. He'd come to see what he could see, called it a random inspection. And since he had his little card, there'd best be no objection. Jack easily relented. Well, go on then. Suppose you know what you're doing. Inspect the place to your heart's content. I'll not be interfering. In spite of the warning, there he went, headed straight for the gate. Went on through, disappeared over the rise. Not a moment did he hesitate. 160-acre pasture. No telling what he expected to find, but he wasn't gone an hour when his world began to unwind. Jack first heard a cry for help. Faint, but soon grew stronger, emanating from the bull pasture, frantic and getting louder. Jack looked up for just a moment, then back to what he was doing. As he'd given his word plain enough, there'd be no interfering. Well, the commotion brought the wife out to see what had gone wrong. Found Jack busily working, humming and singing a song. Well, she inquired, so Jack explained 'twas the government man from town. He wanted to inspect the bull pasture. So he'd gone in to look around. About that time, he topped the rise, running at full speed, cussing the bull as he passed the gate. The kid was losing his lead. Why, don't you think you ought to help him? Do something to make him quit? Jack's reply, oh, that bull's tough enough. The kid hasn't hurt him yet. Through a bush, over a rock, they danced around a tree. The kid wasn't doing bad for himself, but I was glad 'twas him, not me. Shortly, she demanded, do something. To help the kid, Jack had no choice. Now, the wife seldom ever made a demand, but Jack recognized that tone in her voice. Thing is, if the kid would be still, that bull would quit the attack. Jack told him, stop and quit your yelling. The kid started cussing Jack. Jack tried again as they passed by. The kid's interest in listening was slim. Now, Jack's thinking, while the wife's insisting, the kid's in less trouble than him. Well, then Jack stood tall, winked at his wife, walked to the gate in the yard. For a last try, as they passed by, Jack hollered, show 'em your government card.
Oh, geez. I can just see that.
Well, there was some of that was true. I don't know what all, but there was a conversation that was very similar to that.
Well, I think you and I have observed that the government often hires kids out of school with a degree and a good education, but what they don't teach them is the reality of life on the ground.
Yep, common sense.
Common sense, yep. And that young man learned a lesson. I hope that bull stopped when he saw the card.
I don't know, but the kid never got hurt, so.
Oh, golly. Jeez. Oh, Mike, you do some wonderful poems. You have another poem that's appropriate for the season because Thanksgiving is just about upon us, and
well, there's one that I do at Thanksgiving. I don't do it normally other than that because a lot of people don't understand it, but at Thanksgiving, and this is a true story, and we didn't always have a turkey for Thanksgiving for various reasons, but we'd find something else. And I think this poem shares that with you, and I hope the folks can see the Thanksgiving in it and
Yep.
the happiness, and I'll talk a little more on the far side of it. The best thing about Thanksgiving was Mom's turkey soup. It might be beans or beef or venison or chicken from a coop. Might be cottontail or sage hen with homemade noodles by the scoop. Whatever it was, we gave thanks and called it turkey soup. Now, what you don't understand is because we didn't have a turkey and somebody said someplace that's what we were supposed to have, Mom would make soup and we had soup quite often, and quite often it was bean soup. Then we'd have the bean soup one day, and then we'd have a bowl of beans the next day. Then we'd refry them the next day, and then we'd make burritos out of whatever was left the next day, and then we'd start all over again. But I remember the Thanksgiving that we had soup, and we were all a little older, and we got a ribbon that it didn't look like turkey soup, and somebody said, "No, that's turkey soup." And of course, we saw the beans in it and the broth, and we said, "No, I don't think it was." And we ribbed each other all the way through that, and that was one of the best meals we had. It wasn't just the eating of the soup, but the camaraderie and the love that was shown in the thankfulness.
Yep.
For what we had.
Yep.
And we always had Mom's homemade bread. and I don't care what you eat, as long as you got a little butter and honey to go with soup, and that's the feast.
Homemade bread.
Homemade bread. That's a feast.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Is today even.
Yep.
How about doing Grandpa would tip his hat?
Okay. And that is a true story. That is a true story. And it's based on when I couldn't have been much more than 6. And we were walking downtown in Benson. And I noticed Grandpa doing something that I'd seen him do hundreds of times before, just all the time. And when we passed the ladies, he would tip his hat, or he would make a gesture, and he'd say hello. And I guess for some reason, and I wore a hat at that time, and I guess it was time for me to learn. I asked him about it, and that's where this poem comes from. Grandpa would tip his hat, and a greeting he would bid with a smile as he passed the ladies, because that's what cowboys did. He'd tip his hat to the little girls. He'd get from them a smile and glow and a kick out of their giggles, along with a friendly hello. The first time that he met a gal, his hat had come off his head. He'd hold it for a moment, then it'd be back on his head again. The next time after he'd met him, the words would be much the same, but there'd only be a tipping gesture as he'd politely say their name. Grandpa would tip his hat, and I guess I learned from him, along with a few other things needed to be a gentleman. Now, Mom constantly instructed on manners good and bad, but it was Grandpa that I listened to on the fine art of becoming a man. Other times he'd remove his hat in public was at church, or when Old Glory passed him by. At his chest, his hat he'd clench. While society no longer requires politeness, real patriotism's hard to find.
Yes, it is.
Attentiveness is no longer part of caring, and folks don't seem to mind. How sad it is that men no more tip their hats to the ladies. An action as American as presidents kissing babies. Like a salute from a knight in armor, a bow from a musketeer. Noble gestures once so common are seen less of through the years. Unless you're in cow country or cattle growers are in town, this courtesy trait once offered by men will likely not be found. Now, here's why I still tip the hat. Going beyond new social rules. You see, tipping of the hat was taught to me as the respectful thing to do.
Nice. Something we all ought to do more of. And I will admit to my negligence in that regard. I do it often, but I don't do it often enough.
I've seen you tip your hat to the ladies, and I'm proud of you.
Yeah, I've seen cowboys that I respected a bunch, and boy, they were the best at that. Even walking in a house, they'd always take off their hat when they walked in a house.
Well, and you should, don't get me wrong. And you should never lay your hat on a kitchen table. And there's a lot of rules that say if you do that, you're going to have bad luck, and you don't set it on your bed, and you always set it upside down or lip it over the thing. But I had a run-in with my mom once because I went into a house with her, and it was kind of a crowded deal. And I was afraid if I took my hat off, when I came back to get it, it'd be gone. And so I says, Mom, in this case, the best place for the hat is on the head. But she didn't much agree with me, but there are exceptions, I guess.
Yeah. Yep. I suppose there are. You and I have talked a couple of times, and I think it's an interesting story. We have Kartchner Caverns down near Sierra Vista, Benson, in that area. Your family ranch was just north of that.
That's right.
And when you were a kid, you went by a hole in the ground, and I think it was your Uncle Jack that said, "Come on, boy."
Well, that was Grandpa.
Grandpa?
It was Grandpa. And he knew what was there. There was a number of people in Benson that knew what was there.
Mm-hmm.
Granddad, now when we went out riding, we was often 6 to 8 hours, sometimes more.
Sure.
So you'd have to stop every once in a while and air your pony's back and just give them a little bit of rest. And he took advantage of that. He'd lay down under a mesquite tree and pull the hat over his face, and he'd often act like he was sleeping. And I'd say, Grandpa, come on, and it's time to go now. But anyway, anytime I saw something that I wanted to get off and look at, because there's a lot of history right there.
Mm-hmm.
Along those Whetstone Mountains on the east side, there was a wagon trail train that they used to haul stuff up to the fort, and all kinds of things. And every once in a while find an oxen shoe that had been thrown. And it was just an interesting place to scout out. And he had always stopped. If I wanted to stop, I guess he thought it was part of an education. He'd let me look around and sometimes longer than I should, and he was good about it. But this one time we were trailing some cattle that had got out, and I saw this little ledge, and underneath it, it looked like it was open. And so I got off the horse, and I'm starting to look in there, and it looks like it widens out a little bit. I mean, there's some room in there. And I yell out to Grandpa, Grandpa, I want to look at this. Grandpa, do you know what this is? And as far as I know, he never turned his head. He says, just get back on your horse. All you're going to find is a bunch of rattlesnakes in there. And he just kept riding. And I'm saying, Grandpa, no, I want to look, And he just kept riding on. What am I going to do? I'm going to get back on the horse and catch up with him.
Sure.
So, I mean, it really surprised me. It really surprised me. Well, years later, I realized that was the entrance to Kartchner Caverns. And he knew about it. Jack knew about it. In fact, Jack had been into it in the 30s. And he didn't want this stinking 13, 14-year-old kid blabbing about it and getting interest in it, which ultimately happened later in years. I always thought I'd go back to it one time when he is out of town or something. And I just never did. So
interesting.
Yeah. But you got to think about those boys that were up there that they claimed discovered it. They had an inkling it was there. I mean, they just weren't walking around the desert and say, oh, look, we're going to go rappelling in this thing. Somebody had tipped them off. And that's exactly what Grandpa did not want me to do.
Yeah. So. Yeah. Well, it's really, when you think about it, it's wonderful that it wasn't kind of one of those things that became a public attraction at the wrong time.
Absolutely.
Too soon.
I haven't been in them. Most of the family has, and they tell me they've done a first-rate job
Yeah.
preserving that.
Yep. Barb and I have had the pleasure of going to them and walking through them and seeing things and seeing the tracks in the mud that are who knows how old.
They could have been Jack's as far as I know. There's another way in. I don't know if they've found it, but Jack went in another way in the back. He was shown that way by a miner that was up there that took him in. And they used the little flame up on top of the helmet. That's how they saw when they went in. And of course, this was back in the 30s. But a lot of history in that area. I'm sure Indians have been in there a number of times too. So.
Yeah. Yep. Well, there is a lot of history. We've been in the museum there at Fort Huachuca, and a lot of history there too.
Yeah.
So, well, Mike, it's kind of that season of the year. Have you got a Christmas poem you'd share with us?
Sure, I'd like to do that.
Okay.
This is about an old cowboy that had a family once, and through certain things that happened, they had passed on, and he wasn't willing to give his love away again. And that's a separate poem. But this is called The Gift of Honey, and it just kind of shows the goodness of an old lonesome cowboy and what he could do. And I'll let the poem explain the thing. It's called The Gift of Honey. And as soon as I remember the first words, I'll get started. Okay.
It'll come to you.
It will. Some sage honey would be found Christmas morning every year. Upon our porch in a mason jar, never a note was there. In town, a mercantile owner had a stand of hives, producing more than seemed you could sell. So for patronage, it was supposed to thank you, a gift to wish us well. It was supposed, though when he was asked, he never gave reply. For years, the assumption was a thoughtful way to reduce his excess supply. In the high plains lived old man Ben, a cattle rancher a ways north of town. He's a quiet man, but we'd have us a good visit whenever he'd come around. As long as I remember, he'd always lived alone. But he may have had a family once, but it had to have been long ago. A good neighbor, mostly kept to himself, the kind that'd lend a hand. But it wasn't until the storekeeper died we was to learn the goodness of that man. We was to learn who the giver was. The storekeeper's wife tells the story, answering the mystery kept so long. It was Ben that first gave the gift of honey. Her husband stayed silent all those years. That was Ben's request at the time. When Ben died, the keeper pondered, then decided to keep Ben's tradition alive. You see, starting out, their little store didn't do too well, with payments often coming in late, causing hardship on the family. Oh, Ben, he seemed to relate. Ben patronized their little store in hopes of making life better. Then brought him a steer for beef, and later a cow for milk and butter. But the keeper's proud, got to square the deal. Of course, he is strapped for money. So to settle things, it was agreed. Old Ben would accept payment in homespun honey. Now, the cost of the steer wasn't an issue for Ben. He was willing to do without the money. The problem facing the old cowboy now was, what's he going to do with all that honey? He spread it on biscuits. He sweetened coffee. He'd use it for catching flies. He'd spread it on his horse's feed. It'd make their coats just shine. And if someone done something good, even far removed from himself, he'd hear about it. And for long, he'd place a jar of honey on their porch. When Christmas came, Ben got a plan and went to work in it well. He simply shared with those around him. But as the giver, he did not tell. He set honey on the doorsteps of strangers, as well as those he knew. Brought the old cowboy Christmas joy, something he come to look forward each year to do. And every year Ben would deliver a steer to pay for the Christmas honey. And every year the exchange was quietly made, with never an exchange of money. Provided by the storekeeper, but really a gift from Ben. A gift accepted by the wealthy as well as the hired hand. He shared with all, good and bad, no matter how rich or poor. It tickled the old cowboy leaving the gift undetected at the door. Oh, I'm sure there were those that knew, but chose not to ruin the fun. For the old cowboy with the gentle heart, his secret had been kept from the town. Still today, a bit of Ben's tradition lingers on, as a jar of honey might be left for something or for nothing upon a porch, with the giver left unsaid.
That's the spirit of Christmas.
Spirit of Christmas.
Boy. Yeah, it is. Nice. Part of the season that we enjoy and celebrate.
Yes, sir.
It is. Yep. Let's close today, Mike, if you would, with your poetry, and would you do Autumn's Reflections for us?
I'd be happy to.
Super.
And for those that don't know, autumn is the time you kind of reflect. You've already had a full year from spring to autumn. It's a time you let go the horses to graze on their own. Winter doesn't require as much horsepower as it does during the year. And it's the time that the cowboy reflects on what the past year was, the good, the bad, how is he going to improve? And that's as common as it can be. I don't know any ranch or outfit that doesn't do some autumn reflection. So that's where this poem comes from. Ripples of wind bring autumn's scent, press through golden leaves. Sunlight bright and shortened days adds warmth to cooling breeze. Autumn's a cherished time as much as that of spring, when the range puts off its summer's best to wait that which winter's to bring. The streams abused by horses' hooves, dancing in autumn's reflection, nose in the water with snorts and stomps and energetic, playful rendition. Listening, I tarry in thought. It's a concert to the discerning ear, as pensioned horses and working stock mark their end to another year. It's a time we let go the remuda with winter's needs so few, to run with those retired souls, freedoms of youth to renew. And we visit, before I let them go, telling them each one how well they've done. Even old Sorry gets some praise, though he's already itching to run. The year, it's been a good one. Chores got done at a reasonable pace. Got some rain and the calf crop paid. I'd say we run us a good race. Kids are all well, doing fine. Took it hard when old Ben passed on. And though he's old and ready to go, it's tough to believe he's really gone. But as Ben would say at the close of day, we're all blessed aplenty. And if we don't recognize the good Lord's hand, it would be for us a pity. So with that thought, I thank you, Lord, for your gentle care and conversation, for blessings beyond worldly goods, shown clear in autumn's reflection.
Thank you, Mike. That ought to make us all think a little bit. Hopefully it does, reflect on things and think about the year behind us and look forward to the year ahead of us and be thankful.
Amen.
Yeah. Yep.
And I'm more blessed than I deserve.
Oh, you and I both. I feel blessed here today because I've had the privilege of being your audience today. Yeah, and it's not very often I get that chance, but I sure enjoyed it. Thank you for joining us today, watching our podcasts, listening to them. We will be continuing these as we prepare for the 2026 38th Arizona Cowboy Poets Gathering, August 6th, 7th, and 8th here in Prescott, Arizona. So please think about joining us. We have 3 night shows. We have free, they're ticketed. We have free day sessions during the day on Friday afternoon and all day Saturday. So there's a lot you can participate in and enjoy, and you can do it very economically. And as I mentioned earlier, please look forward to Mike being back with us. And check out our website at azcowboypoets.org. Sign up for our e-newsletter. You can do that on our website, and follow us on Facebook. And until we meet again, Merry Christmas, Happy Thanksgiving. We wish you the best, and adios.